Hello everyone. Don't know whether you can see me there, but I've got the camera zoomed in on the mandolin this time. You don't need to see my ugly mug at all. We're going to do The Butterfly, which is a significantly more difficult tune than Buskin, which was the one we did last time. Now the Butterfly, if you play the fiddle, you'll know that it's in E minor, or if you're familiar with it at all, if you've played it at all before, you'll know that it's usually in E minor. And we can play it on a mandolin in E minor, no trouble. It involves a little first finger pad barre there across the two middle strings. But if I'm not playing with other people, if I'm just doing this as a mandolin solo, I always like to make sure that I'm in the most friendly key possible for the mandolin. And although E minor is certainly a friendly key, I discovered that if I played it in A minor rather than E minor, I could get a particular harp-like effect by throwing the first two notes across the top two strings, which are open, and then playing the rest of the melody on the third string. And while I'm playing the rest of the melody, I can allow the top two strings to ring underneath. So I get an effect in A minor that I simply cannot get in E minor, which is this. You hear the difference there? Those two open strings are ringing underneath the rest of the melody. If I'm down in E minor, there doesn't sound anything wrong with it, but it doesn't sound nearly as attractive to me. So for me, A minor is a far preferable key to play The Butterfly in. I'll play through the whole tune for you. Okay, I'll talk you through it slowly now. I'll play through the first couple of bars, and I don't know whether you noticed when I was playing the A music that for those first couple of bars, in fact 3 bars, my left hand was in the same position. It didn't move at all for those 3 bars. And I'm up in what a violin player would call third position, which is my first finger is on the 5th fret there. And I'm actually only using my little finger on the 10th fret, my third finger on the 9th fret, and my first finger on the 1st fret. And if you follow the music or the tab, this is what happens during the first 3 bars. Look how little my hand moves. That's the first 3 bars. And in order to let those open strings ring clearly, it's very, very important that the left hand position is good, that your first fingers are curling over in a tight arch so that you're not catching the first and the second string, which are ringing, right? So you have to make sure that there's a nice tight arch coming over and you're getting this third string directly down on top. Okay, so here's those first 3 bars again. That's the fourth bar. Optional little bit of decoration there. So I'm not actually moving down into first position to do that, because I'm going to be going back up here in a moment when we repeat that first section. So I'm only moving my hand down as far as I have to. So I'm getting that G on the top string with me first finger rather than me second finger. Okay? So here's the whole of the first section. Played really slowly now. I'll slow it up even more. Okay. Moving on to the second section now. This is from bar 5, and once again you'll notice how little my left hand moves. We start out first finger on the 5th fret, watch the tab closely there. Even if you're normally reading the standard notation, I'm getting that that G with my little finger on the 10th fret, second string. And although it's not written, I'm allowing that open E to ring underneath the following D. Here's the first 2 bars again of the second section. And then I'm sliding up with my 4th finger. Now watch this carefully. So that reaches the end of bar 8, which is the end of the second section. Now by the time you get here, you see where my fingers are. The top string is open. I've got a G on the 10th fret, and I've got a D on the 12th fret of the 3rd string. And by the time I reach the end of the second section, all those 3 strings are ringing and we get this nice discord. The notes on the mandolin die away so quickly that by the time I did that bit of spiel you couldn't hear it anymore. But if I play the whole of the second section now, you'll hear that chord ringing when I get to the end of the second section. Here we go. Hear that? Okay. Second section, very slowly now again. And once more. Now the fun starts, the third section. This is a series of chords underneath the melody with a descending bass line, in as much as you can have a bass line on a mandolin. And it's very, very important that you follow the left-hand fingering as indicated to play this successfully. Normally when we're playing down in first position, if we're just playing a single note line, then we follow the rule of what we call diatonic fingering, which means that the fingering follows the notes of whatever scale we happen to be playing in. which is different from a guitar, which is normally fingered chromatically. It's one finger per fret on a guitar, whereas on a mandolin we follow the notes of the scale rather than sticking to one finger per fret. Now that holds true for 95% probably of all cases where we're playing just a single note melody line. When we're playing a chordal sequence like this, that rule goes completely out of the window, and we have to approach it more like a guitarist would. We have to work out the most efficient fingering for the passage, which is what I've done for you if you follow the fingering on the standard notation for this third sequence. So I'll play through it slowly. It goes like this. Okay, and that final chord, I'm getting the third and the fourth string with, I'm just kind of flattening the first finger out a little bit. If your fingers are very, very narrow, then you might want to use two fingers like that, but my fingers aren't particularly fat, but I still find it easier to just get those two bottom strings with the, just making a slight pad out of the end of my first finger. Okay, so that's the final note, which is an ambiguous A chord. You can't. There's no third in it. It's just root fifth, root fifth. Okay, right. I'll play through the whole tune again very slowly and just see if you can keep up. Although you might need to learn this section by section, but it's a very pretty tune, I think. The other thing to mention about it is the tone that you're making from the mandolin, and I like to get a very rounded tone rather than a piercing hard tone when I play something like this. So I've got one of these asymmetrical plectrums, and I'm actually using the blunt corner of the plectrum rather than the sharp bit, and angling it a little bit as it goes across the strings. Rather than angling the plectrum. So I'm not going flat on, I'm just angling the plectrum as it moves across the string, like that, rather than like that. Okay, so here we go. I'll count to three, then we're in. 1, 2, 3.